the open meeting law because of extraordinary circumstances. This meeting will be conducted by WebEx and will be recorded. Members of the public will be able to monitor this meeting by calling 855-282-6330 and use the passcode 964-964-049, or by clicking the link on the agenda to review the live stream of the meeting. That number and passcode are also listed on the agenda at the Met Council website. Some guidelines. I think we're getting pretty good at this. Everyone other than the speaking person should put their microphones on mute, please. WebEx has a written chat function. Please only use that to address technical difficulties like you can't hear. We'll communicate with each other only through speaking. Please direct all discussions and requests through the chair. When you want to make a comment, ask a question, or participate in a discussion, please click on the hand icon next to your name on the right upper hand corner of WebEx. I should be able to see that. I hope. Yeah. If we're able to see each other, you can always raise your hand, and if neither of those works, please just ask for recognition. Because conversations among several people by electronic means can be cumbersome, we should limit our discussion to the business items at hand. Please refrain from talking over other speakers. When you participate in discussion, please speak directly into your receiver or microphone. When you make or second a motion, please state your name so I know the motion has been made and seconded. And Michelle, the recording secretary, can record this information for the minutes. Because we're conducting the meeting electronically, all votes must be taken by roll call. I or other committee members and the public must be able to hear your vote. If you do not vote on a particular business item during roll call, clearly state that you are abstaining. During the course of the meeting, if you leave the location from which you're participating, please inform me of your absence so we can ensure a quorum continues. And I think, if there are no questions on that before we proceed, Michelle, will you please call the roll and we'll establish quorum?
Hey, Robert, this is Greg. You won't be able to see the hand raised.
Okay.
What you could do is in the upper right-hand corner of your screen,
yep,
you see the second button from the right. If you hover over that,
yep,
it'll give you a grid view.
Yep.
So you'll be able to see everyone. And if
Yep.
they raise their hands on the camera, then you'd be able to see them.
Well, I like this view. I call it the Brady Bunch view. So that's all I'm looking at. Yeah, thank you, Greg. Thanks for that. Great. And Michelle, will you please call a roll for attendance? Michelle, are you there? We lose her?
She's there. She must be having some mic issues.
Okay. Yeah, she's not muted. Yeah, we can't hear you, Michelle. Michelle, are you there? Okay. So I will just go through the committee list. Councilmember Vento.
Here.
Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Here.
Councilmember Cummings.
Here.
Right. Councilmember Chambliss.
Here.
Right. Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Right. Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Right. Councilmember Lindstrom.
Here.
Great. And Councilmember Wolf.
Here.
Great. And that is everybody. No, okay. So we have a quorum present and we can proceed. So I'll call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Community Development Committee of the Metropolitan Council to order for April 20th, 2020. We have an agenda before us and I would entertain a motion to approve it, please.
Cummings moves.
Seconded by Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Excellent. Any discussion? Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, Michelle, if you can call the roll, will you do that, please? Michelle. Oh, we're not hearing you, Michelle. And I don't know that there's any reason I can't call the roll. I'm happy to do it. I'll just use the order that were listed on the website. So an approval of the agenda, Councilmember Vento,
Aye.
Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Councilmember Cummings,
Aye.
Councilmember Chambliss, Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Lindstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Wolf. Was that an aye, Councilmember Wolf? Okay, thank you. That passes unanimously. Continue. I have so many tabs open, you guys. Hold on. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the April 6, 2020 regular committee of the Community Development. Regular meeting of the Community Development Committee. Is there a motion to approve?
Chambliss moves.
Was that Chambliss?
Vento.
Okay. And then is there a second?
Second, Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you. Any discussion, additions, corrections? Okay, seeing none, Michelle, do you want to see if you can call the roll? Okay, it doesn't look like it, so I call the roll. I should call myself too, I guess. Councilmember Vento,
Aye.
Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Councilmember Cummings,
Aye.
Councilmember Chambliss,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Lindstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Wolf.
Aye.
The chair votes aye, so that's unanimous. Is this working for people? Okay, cool. Michelle, just jump in whenever your sound gets figured out, please.
That she can hear us.
I assume she can hear us. Greg, are you talking to her by any chance? Do you know?
I've just sent her a message to try to get a phone number from her. So Michelle, if you can hear me, if you can call extension 1635, we can do it offline, see if we can get your mic working.
Cool. Thank you, Greg. Next on the agenda is business items. Our first business item is 2020-118. It's a joint committees item. It's a 2040 comprehensive plan and comprehensive sewer plan for the city of Cologne. And that'll be Raya Smalley will present that.
Hi.
Hi.
Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
Perfect. Hello, council members, Mr. Chair. I'm Raya Smiley. I'm the sector representative for District 4, Carver County, in the Local Planning Assistance Group in the Community Development Division. I would like to let the committee know that Hyla Mays, the City of Cologne's planning consultant, is in the audience today. She's present here, and I would like to extend my thanks to Hyla in working so collaboratively with us during the review process to get this plan to this point. So before you today is a review of the city's comprehensive plan. Thanks, Greg. I'm behind on mine. Okay, there we go. Before you is figure 1 of the staff report that identifies the location of regional system components within the city of Cologne. US Highway 212 and the Twin Cities and Western Regional Trail Search Corridor are within the boundaries of the city of Cologne. The current wastewater treatment services are provided by a wastewater treatment plant owned and operated by the city. Next slide, please. Thank you. Figure 2 from the staff report identifies the city as rural center community designation, and the city is located in central Carver County. It is completely surrounded by Benton Township. Am I echoing? Sorry. Okay. Anyway, the city is completely surrounded by Benton Township. Next slide, please.
It's better.
Yes, thank you. Table 1, also in your staff report, shows that between 2020 and 2040, the council forecasts that the city will grow by 1,810 people, representing 800 households, and there will be an increase of 100 jobs in the city in the same time frame. Next slide, please. Thank you. Table 2 from the staff report shown here illustrates that the planned residential density in the rural center areas of the city is expected to be between 3.01 and 6.56 units per acre. Communities with a rural center designation under Thrive are expected to plan for their growth at overall average minimum densities of 3 to 5 units per acre. And the Cologne plan is consistent with this policy. Next slide, please. Thank you. The city's existing land use map refers to figure 3 in the staff report. The existing land uses in the city are predominantly agricultural. That's over a third of the city, followed by residential uses, about 20%. And most of the existing retail and other commercial is located along Paul Avenue South. The majority of the institutional uses are on the eastern side of the city, and approximately 5% of the city is parks and open space, with 11% undeveloped. Next slide, please. Thank you. The city's future land use map refers to figure 4 of the staff report. The majority of planned areas within the city are designated as low density residential. The intent is to maintain that rural character of the city, providing support for agricultural activities in the unincorporated areas around the city, like outside of its boundaries, pretty much. And then the higher density developments are concentrated in the downtown area. Next slide, please. So the proposed findings are that the plan conforms to Metropolitan system plans, is consistent with council policies, and is compatible with the plans of adjacent local governmental units and affected jurisdictions. Next slide, please. Thank you. On Tuesday, April 28th, Environmental Services will present to the Environment Committee. This will be on the Metropolitan Council agenda on the May 13th meeting. And I would like to remind the committee that Hyla Mays, the planning consultant for the city of Cologne, is virtually in the audience in attendance. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the proposed action before you is to authorize the city of Cologne to place its 2040 comprehensive plan into effect and advise the city to implement the advisory comments in the review record for land use, surface water management, and water supply. Next slide, please. Thank you. With that, I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mrs. Smiley, for the report. Thanks, Ms. Mays, for your work on the City of Cologne's behalf and for being here tonight. Any questions on that report? Any questions? Seeing none.
Chair Lilligren, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Is that
Michelle.
you? Michelle? Oh,
Yes, thank
yay.
you, Michelle. I'm so sorry. Let me know when you'd like me to call roll on this after someone's made the motions, please.
Will do. Thank you, Michelle. I'm glad you're on.
Thank you.
Is there a motion on the staff recommendation?
So moved by Lee.
Second by Wolf.
Thank you, council members. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll on this item.
Thank you, Chair. Atlas Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cumming,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Musse, Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yep, that is unanimous. That item is adopted. Thank you. Next business item is 2020-119. It's also a joint committees item. It's a comprehensive sewer plan for the city of New Germany. And again, Mrs. Smiley, this is your item, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi again, it's Raya Smiley, and I would like to let the committee know that Hyla Mays, also the planning consultant for the city of New Germany, is still in attendance. And similar to our work on Cologne's plan, I appreciate Hyla's effort on this one as well. Before you today is a review of the city of New Germany's 2040 comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Greg, can you advance the slide? Oh, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. This map reflects figure 1 of the report that identifies the location of regional system components. The only system component within the city of New Germany is Dakota Rail Regional Trail. Similar to the city of Cologne, the current wastewater treatment services are provided by a wastewater treatment facility owned and operated by the city. Next slide, please. Thank you. Figure 2 from the staff report shows the city of New Germany's community designation as rural center. The city of New Germany is located in northwest Carver County and is surrounded by the communities of Hollywood Township and Camden Township. Next slide, please. Thanks. Table 1 of the staff report shows that between 2020 and 2040, council forecasts that the city will grow by 260 people who represent 140 households, and there will be an increase of 20 jobs in the city. Next slide. Thank you. Table 2 from the staff report shows the planned residential density in the city. The overall density for guided residential land is expected to be between 3.29 and 4.35 units per acre. And communities with a rural center designation are expected to plan for densities between 3 and 5 units per acre, and the city of New Germany's plan is consistent with that policy. Next slide, please. Thank you. The city's existing land use map, which is also figure 3 of the staff report, is here before you, and the predominant existing land use in the city is agricultural. That's over 40%, and then followed by about 38% of land as undeveloped and vacant. Residential land uses are just above 11%, and about just short of 5% of the city is designated as park and recreation. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is figure 4 of the staff report that shows the future land use map. Based on the future land use, the majority of the city will continue to be designated as agricultural. That will be closer to 50%, and then residential, about 40%. Most of the undeveloped land has been designated with a future land use of low density residential. And then areas that are designated as non-residential uses are mostly around Broadway Street East and State Avenue North. There's no agricultural preserves property within the city either. Next slide, please. So the proposed findings for this plan are that the plan conforms to metropolitan system plans, is consistent with council policies, and is compatible with the plans of adjacent local governmental units and affected jurisdictions. Next slide, please. Thank you. I failed to actually mention that for the city of Cologne, the Environment Committee meeting on April 28th has been canceled, and this plan and the city of Cologne are both scheduled for that. So both plans will go directly to the Metropolitan Council meeting on Wednesday, May 13th. And I would like to again remind the committee that Hyla Mays, the consultant for the city, is in the audience. Thank you. So the proposed actions before you is to authorize the City of New Germany to place its 2040 comprehensive plan into effect and advise the city to implement the advisory comments in the review record for surface water management and water supply. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions that you may have. I think you are muted, Chair Lilligren.
Thank you. Rookie mistake. Any questions on that report? Any questions? Seeing none, Mrs. Smiley has proposed an action. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Cummings moves.
Bento.
Bento moves. Is there a second? Atlas Ingebrigtsen?
Second, Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll on this item.
Thank you, Chair. Atlas Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That item is adopted unanimously. And again, thanks, Ms. Mays, for being here and for your partnership on this. Oh my goodness. Next on the agenda is business item 2020-122. It's the City of St. Mary's Point 2040 Comprehensive Plan. And that will be Mr. Riley that will present. Welcome, Mr. Riley.
Hi, Chair Lilligren. This is Angela Torres, Manager of Local Planning Assistant.
Hey, Angela. The agenda said Mr. Riley, I thought.
And Mr. Riley is on vacation this afternoon, so I am subbing in for him if that's all right.
Yep, good for him and lucky for us. Thanks.
So I'm assuming that my audio is working just fine then.
Yep.
Okay. I would like to mention that the consulting staff, Scott Richards for the City of St. Mary's Point, was not able to join us today, but Jake definitely wanted me to extend my thanks to both the city and their consultant for their collaboration with him in order to get the plan complete and in front of all of you today. Before you today is the review then of the City of St. Mary's Point 2040 Comprehensive Plan. Next slide, please. This map reflects Figure 1 of the staff report and identifies that there are no regional system elements within the city limits of the City of St. Mary's Point. Next slide, please. Thank you. Figure 2 from the staff report identifies the city as having a rural residential community designation consistent with Thrive MSP 2040. St. Mary's Point is located along the eastern border of Washington County. It is communities of Lake St. Croix Beach and Afton along the St. Croix River. Next slide, please. Table 1, also in your staff report, shows that between 2020 and 2040, the council forecasts that the city will not grow in terms of population, household, or employment. Forecasts for growth are stable through the entire planning period. Next slide, please. Thank you. The city's existing land use map refers to Figure 3 in the staff report. The existing land uses in St. Mary's Point are primarily residential, up to 80%, nearly 80% of the remainder of the land then is mostly undeveloped with about 11%. And then parks and open space taking up the majority of the rest of that at 9%. And a small amount of the city is institutional or government. And this is reflected in Figure 3 of your staff report. Next slide, please. The city's future land use map refers to Figure 4 in the staff report. Future land uses are primarily rural residential with parks and open space. Rural residential communities are expected to discourage future development of rural residential patterns and where opportunities exist, and to plan for rural development at densities that are not greater than 1 unit per 10 acres. The city is not expected to grow in the 2020 to 2040 timeframe and plans to retain their current development pattern. The city is consistent then with this community designation policy. Next slide, please. Thank you. Council staff find that the plan conforms to Metropolitan system plans, is consistent with council policies with the changes to the housing chapter as outlined in the review record, and is compatible with the plans of adjacent local governmental units and affected jurisdictions. Next slide, please. As a reminder, because this community isn't connected to the regional wastewater system, they weren't required to go to the Environment Committee. And even though that committee meeting has been canceled, this item will also be on the agenda item on Wednesday, May 13th. Next slide, please. Thank you. With that, the proposed action before you today is to authorize the City of St. Mary's Point to place its 2040 comprehensive plan into effect and to advise the city to implement the advisory comments in the review record for housing. And with that, I can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Torres, and for that report. Work on this. Any questions on that report? Any questions? Seeing none. Oh, I'm sorry, was it someone asking? Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve this item.
Wolf moves
Cummings
approval.
moves.
Wolf moves approval, and is there a second? Who was that?
Cummings.
Cummings second. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll on this item.
Yes, Chair. Atlas Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Chambliss. Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Lilligren. Lilligren.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. That item is adopted. Next on the agenda is.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, is that Molly, Councilmember
it's
Cummings?
Molly. Yes.
Yep.
I'm wondering if Ms. Torres might be able to give us an update. I've kind of lost track of where we are on comprehensive plans. If she might be able to give us an update as of today where we stand.
Great. Ms. Torres, or I know Director Barajas is on as well. Ms. Torres.
Thank you, Chair and Councilmember Cummings and members of the committee. We were just commenting this morning that we are nearing 100 plans authorized. After the next council meeting, I think we will cross that line. So that's our next major mile marker. But communities are still actively working on their plans with us. And even though we're all touching base remotely, local governments are very busy, and we're seeing plans still come in. We're getting new plans in. We're connecting with some of those communities that may have plans that have been lingering over a time period. And so we're able to connect with them, and we've seen quite a few more come in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions or comments? Thanks, Ms. Torres. Whoa. And no, I can't. Did we take the vote on this one? I can't remember.
Yes, we did, Chair.
Thank you, Michelle. I have got isolation brain. Okay, our next business item then is 2020-120. It's Pine Point Regional Park Master Plan. And Tracy Kinney is with us to present.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks.
Great. Chair, council members, hi, my name is Tracy Kinney. I'm a senior planner in Regional Parks, a unit of the Community Development Division. I am joined by Connor Schaefer, Parks Planner from Washington County, and Darcy Vandergrift, Principal Researcher in Research. Today, the item before you is the Pine Point Regional Park Master Plan upon request of Washington County. Next slide, please. Pine Point Regional Park is located in the northeastern part of the regional park system and in the northern part of Washington County. The items on your left and in the middle are figures 1 and 2 of your business item. Pine Point Regional Park is an existing 287-acre park that serves as a major trailhead to the Gateway State Trail, connecting Stillwater Township to the city of St. Paul. The image to the far right shows the park circled in blue and the Gateway State Trail circled or in teal. Washington County is requesting council consideration of a new master plan. The master plan features improvement to access areas, trails, user experience areas, wayfinding, and natural resource management. Additionally, the master plan includes a proposed boundary adjustment with future acquisitions that will not be part of today's consideration. These additional requests are contingent on its inclusion in the 2020 Systems Edition 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan Amendment. The 2020 System Additions process is the subject of the next information item coming before you today. Colin Kelly, Parks Planning Analyst, will update you on the process. Next slide, please. Here is an image of the development concept for Pine Point Park, Regional Park. This is figure 3 in your business item. To orient you, the Gateway State Trail is the gray line that provides east-west access. Norrell Avenue is the north-south gray line. Norrell Avenue provides access to the park and includes a parking lot, bathroom facility, and trailhead to the state trail. The park boundary is the dashed blue line, and the magenta line is the proposed future boundary adjustments. The development concept includes improved park access, trails, user experience areas, wayfinding, and natural resources management. For access improvements, the master plan identifies 3 types of improvements. These include a safe state trail crossing at Norrell Avenue. This is shown in orange. It includes entry improvements shown with blue circles. And it includes a trail to park entries. These are shown as white dots. Next, I'll talk about trail improvements. The master plan includes new trails and an expanded mountain bike area. The trails include 8.6 miles of improved unpaved multi-use trails that provide access to Louise and Loon Lake. These trails are shown in yellow and blue. The single track mountain bike areas, shown in white, expand the existing use in the park. Next, I'll talk about the experience and route areas. The master plan includes experience and route areas for ecology, historical and cultural discovery, family recreation, and accessibility. These areas are shown in a variety of colored dots. The ADA loop is shown as a magenta and yellow line. Wayfinding. Next, I'll talk about wayfinding. The uniform signage in the park will be improved to include better orientation, trail circulation, interpretation, and policy information. And finally, natural resource management. The master plan provides a framework for managing the park's natural resources to ensure these assets are protected. The top proposed natural resource management strategies include restoring and enhancing native plant communities in the park and focusing restorations and improvements in priority areas. To achieve this master plan, Washington County conducted a robust public and partner participation process and equity analysis. A highlight of this work was the equity analysis. Washington County was the first agency to respond to the council's newly adopted equity analysis requirement. We thank Washington County for this work. As part of the equity analysis, Washington County collaborated with Urban Roots, a youth-serving nonprofit organization located in St. Paul. This collaboration consisted of an on-site tour and workshop that generated advice that directly informed the master plan. This collaboration is one of a number of engagements led by the Metropolitan Council's research unit as part of a study entitled the adventure close to home, connecting the regional park system with Twin Cities area youth. It is planned that Darcy Vandergrift, principal researcher in research, will be bringing this item before the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Committee and the Community Development Committee as an information item in June. Next slide, please. The total cost to implement the master plan is estimated at $9.4 million, including $5.6 million for development and $3.7 million for the proposed acquisitions. The proposed acquisitions to this park are contingent on the review through the systems additions process and subsequent to the 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan amendment. Next slide, please. Staff finds that the Pine Point Regional Park Master Plan is consistent with the requirements of the 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan, including Planning Policy Strategy 1 and other council policies, particularly Thrive 2040. Next slide, please. And the proposed actions before you are that the Metropolitan Council approve the Pine Point Regional Park Master Plan without the boundary adjustment and proposed acquisitions, and to advise Washington County that the proposed boundary adjustment and 169.82 acres of acquisitions are contingent in its inclusion in the 2020 Policy Plan Amendment and will be reviewed and considered through the systems additions process. And I would like to note that the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Committee unanimously approved this item at their April 9th meeting, and that Connor Schaefer from Washington County and Darcy Vandergrift, principal researcher from research, is on the call. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Kinney. Questions on that report? I have first Councilmember Chambliss, Councilmember Atlas Smith, and then Councilmember Reed. Councilmember Chambliss.
Okay, thanks for that presentation. It's really just so exciting to see how our parks and trails are developing and having greater access. Also, the first equity analysis is very exciting, and that I'm sure that the Urban Roots Group was excited in participating. And I look forward to the presentation in June to hear more about that. I am curious about how much, I know you mentioned this, but you know, there's an increase to acquire that 169 acres, considering that we have constrained budgets with the COVID pandemic. Was there a discussion on April 9th regarding that, or plans regarding that?
Ms. Kinney.
Chair, council member, thank you for your question. At this time, we are tabling that discussion and we're holding it for the systems addition discussion. So that is a very good question and will be coming up in the future.
Councilmember Chambliss?
Yes, which division? I did not hear who was working on that discussion. Can you repeat the last part of what you said?
That Chair, council member, that discussion is part of the systems addition discussion. It's a systems addition process. And that is a discussion that is happening right now through the Regional Parks Unit of Community Development Division. And Colin Kelly is going to be presenting an information item to you at this meeting coming up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Addison Robertson.
Chair. I just want to share a little bit of a conversation that we had at the MPOSC meeting. It was really a robust conversation, especially given the way conversations have been going while we've been meeting online. There's a lot of support for this project and an excitement for the work. And so that was reflected in the unanimous vote for supporting the project from MPOSC. There was also a call out to really be thoughtful and cautious about how we are engaging around equity. And one of the commissioners, and it was echoed by another, supported the idea that we have to balance when we're doing equity engagement making sure that the people who we're engaging are in proximity to the regional park and or utilize it, and that there's effort placed in doing that, and not checking a box on equity. And I don't think that that was what was done in this context. However, the group of young people that were brought out don't live close to the facility, and none had gone to the facility before. And we certainly have gotten a lot of feedback. I've received a lot of feedback around regional facilities that are losing in the efforts to maybe be more visited, are losing sight of the local communities. So just making sure that in our efforts to advance equity, we're looking at equity and through a lens of the communities that have close proximity to these regional resources, and not just saying bringing in a group of diverse folks to talk about a facility that don't live in proximity to it or have not visited it before, to make sure we're connecting with people who are most impacted by that facility, and can give guidance about the uniqueness and opportunities that they provide. I hope that was clear, and if it wasn't, I welcome questions.
It was very clear. Anyone have a follow-up question for Councilmember Atlas-Ingebrigtsen? No, it was very clear. An excellent point, for sure. Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sure our great staff have thought this out, so this might be a dumb question, but I noticed the yellow lines, hiking lines or trails, go around through the mountain bike lots, and I was wondering, what is going to be done to make sure that the people walking the hiking trails don't get run over by mountain bikers?
Ms. Kinney.
Thanks, Council Member Chair. That's a great question. And I could speak very, very highly at a high level on that, and then Connor Schaefer can talk a little bit more detailed. But I know that Washington County spent a lot of time focusing on separating both those two uses out, both through the design, the planning level that they went through right now, and then also through their signage effort that they put in through the master plan. Connor, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Commission Member, thank you for the opportunity. Really good question. Tracy really talked about most of what I was going to cover. I was just going to add that these are the plan proposes a phased approach of implementation. So a lot of the mountain bike trails would be contingent on some of the acquisition. And in the meantime, as we wait for those parcels to become available, we still have the opportunity to expand the existing hiking and walking trails within the park while we wait to acquire enough land that will allow us to implement the larger mountain bike network.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. And I think Councilmember Wolf might have had something to add there, and then Councilmember Atlas-Ingebrigtsen.
No, actually, I have a question, another question.
Oh, okay. Do you mind if I just check with Councilmember Atlas-Ingebrigtsen? Was that on this?
No, it's something else.
Okay. Councilmember Atlas-Ingebrigtsen, is this on this topic? Well, please. And then I'll come back.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Chai, I think that's a great and very observant question. And I just want to put this maybe as a bee in our bonnet, or find out if someone else is thinking about this or doing work about this. But that is an area that I do get a number of complaints about, is the interactions between mountain bikers and hikers on unpaved trails in regional facilities. So I just was thinking it might be, I'd love to hear about what are some best practices in that, or is that a need for our implementing agencies to have maybe a resource or a conversation that's put together around, as we're building more mountain bike facilities, how do we balance that opportunity between users, and what are good practices in that? And I haven't seen anyone really talk about that, but, and I'm a mountain biker. I'm also a trail runner, and I hike on those trails with my son, and we've had near misses and hits, unfortunately. And so I just wonder, and I don't know if anyone on the call, either from, if it's Colin or someone else, who has any idea about that, but I just thought that could be a good thing for MPOSC to take on or have a conversation about, or maybe some of our communities or implementing agencies.
Councilmember, I'll just look to Ms. Kinney if she has a response, or I think you're, remember I was thinking it's kind of lifting up an issue that needs more discussion, right? So.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Council member, I do think that this might be a good information item in the future for MPOSC, or some shared information that can go out to MPOSC members.
Thank you. Thanks, Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question was looking at the plan, that the little map that is in the presentation. It looks like there's access to the park along the Gateway Trail, but I don't see any other access. If people are coming from somewhere else in the region, is there some place for them to get into the park? Like, say they want to put their bike on a bike rack and drive it to there from, Wayzata or someplace where you can't just ride there. Is there somewhere that people can access the park? Because it's a pretty big area if it doesn't have any other access.
Do you have a response, or would that be Mr. Schaefer, perhaps?
No, Chair, Council member, that's a really good question. And yes, there is access to the park through Norrell Avenue, and that is, if Greg Ritchie can go back to the development concept plan, that is actually right by the yellow box where the Gateway Trail crosses Norrell Avenue. There is a parking lot there, a restroom facility, and a trailhead. And so, yeah, that's how park visitors access the park today. And in the future, I think there is more plans that kind of potentially talk about to have more access to vehicles and walk up visitors on the west Myron Road when acquisitions come into fruition. Connor, did you want to speak to that?
Tracy, you got it right. Yep, 2 accesses in the future. There's one existing off of Norrell.
Well, thank you. Councilmember Wolf?
Answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that report? Discussion, Councilmember Bento.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 25 years ago, when Bruce and I first started dating, the Gateway Trail and Pine Point were a part of our weekend rituals. Twice each weekend, we would bike out and back from Lake Phelan. It is a gorgeous area, and whether you're a biker or a hiker or however you want to get there, I can't recommend this area enough. It's lovely, and it's just great to go from the heart of St. Paul out to northern Washington County, or I guess it's actually central Washington County, the big county. But anyway, I can't recommend this enough, and I want to congratulate Washington County for the great work on this.
Thank you, Councilmember. If there's no further discussion, Councilmember Bento, did you want to move approval of this item?
Yes, Vento moves approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Johnson seconds.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, Michelle, will you please call the roll on this item?
Yes, I will, Chair. Atlas Ingebrigtsen. Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Aye.
Chambliss.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Bento.
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That item is adopted unanimously. And thanks, Ms. Kinney, and everyone else who were working on this, presenting. And we move on to, that concludes our business items on the agenda. We move to our information item, and this is what Councilmember Chambliss was discussing, the Regional Park System Additions Project. And so we're going to get a process update from Mr. Kelly, I believe. Colin, are you on?
I am indeed. Can you hear me all right?
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and council members. I am Colin Kelly, planning analyst, and I'm here to present you an information item on the Regional Park System Additions Project. Next slide, please. We're there. The 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan and the work plan therein commits the council to convening a region-wide discussion about system additions in 2019. Fortunately, we were able to get the project up and running last fall, and it will continue well into this year, probably right up to the end of it. The System Additions Project is an opportunity to consider the current and future regional park and trail system in the context of projected population growth, demographic changes, and other trends facing the region. Over the last 5 months, we have engaged deeply with our implementing agency partners on these important trend areas, and more recently, the criteria for system additions in the Regional Parks Policy Plan. Now, we are moving into a phase where we'll be engaging the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission, MPOSC, and you more often. There is a lot I could cover here today, but in the interest of time, I'll try to be brief and focus on the topics noted in today's information item. So, system additions are primarily focused on 4 things: park search areas, regional trail search corridors, park boundary adjustments, and bridging facilities. 3 out of the 4 of those are on display in this map on the right. That came from the 2018 update to the Regional Parks Policy Plan. The red spheres are park search areas, the mustard or maize-colored lines are regional trail search corridors, and the blue sphere here is a park boundary adjustment. Bridging facilities don't yet appear on this map because there have not been any proposed for addition to the regional park system as of yet. However, these facilities were introduced in the original 2015 Regional Parks Policy Plan, and we anticipate we may receive some bridging facility proposals from our agency partners in this update. At our most recent implementing agency partner meeting, our agency partners proposed the formation of a bridging facility work group to further discuss and define the bridging facility concept. Staff met with agency partners earlier this month and will be continuing the discussion at the next implementing agency partner meeting on the 30th of April. A May MPOSC information item will also focus on bridging facilities as well as park boundary adjustments. Next slide, please. The project timeline. Although the first date that appears on this slide is February 26, I'd like to reiterate that this project kicked off in earnest last October. This slide focuses primarily on how and when staff will be engaging implementing agency partners, MPOSC, and you. Council staff originally planned to launch the system additions application process in late March, but we opted to delay it. Staff felt it was important to share the draft application with MPOSC and with you before launching it. We also wanted to better accommodate agencies' internal processes for submitting their proposals to the council, which may require their board's authorization. We also know that our agencies are facing significant challenges in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. We recognize that the current situation demands some flexibility in how and when we're able to advance projects that aren't directly related to this response. That said, the yellow star in the top center of this slide is where we are today. In the next few slides, I'll be outlining the content of the draft system addition application, which staff propose launching the day after tomorrow. After 4 weeks, we'll close the application period on the 20th of May. Following the close of the application process, we propose that staff, together with our agency partners, prepare an information item for the June MPOSC meeting that will outline all of the agency system addition proposals. Meanwhile, staff will be carefully reviewing and analyzing every proposal using the criteria outlined in Chapter 4 of the Regional Parks Policy Plan. And in July, we'll come back to both MPOSC and to you with a draft recommendation for system additions. August begins part 1 of 2 formal council committee processes, the other occurring at the end of the year. In between, we release the Regional Parks Policy Plan amendment for public comment, we hold a public hearing, and in the end, propose adoption of the policy plan amendment. Our goal is to have the project completed by the end of the year, and we invite your participation throughout the process. Next slide, please. Moving on to the draft system addition application. This slide and the next two coincide with attachment 1 on page 3 of this information item, where you can see all 6 questions in one place. The draft application before you is the result of both council staff and implementing agency partners' efforts. First, I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues in the regional parks and research units for their work in developing the application, including Tracy Kinney, Jessica Lee, Dan Markell, and Emmett Mullen. The draft application was also shared with implementing agency partners at our March 26 partner meeting and with MPOSC commissioners on April 9th. As a result of the feedback we received, we have made several changes to the application. We appreciate the input and suggested edits from our partners and think the application is stronger because of it. We also welcome and encourage your feedback on the application today. That said, let's go through the application's content. Number 1, system addition proposal. Please describe the proposal, its location, the proposed acreage or trail miles, and if applicable, the partner arrangement. Please include an overview map of the proposal depicting the location in your agency's jurisdiction. If the proposal calls for converting an existing county or local park or trail to a regional park or trail, is a boundary adjustment for an existing regional park or park reserve, or is for a bridging facility, please also include a more detailed map depicting the location in the local jurisdiction. Number 2, general criteria. Describe how the proposed regional park system addition is regionally significant and meets 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan criteria. Address the applicable general criteria and the applicable strategies in Chapter 4, citing an acquisition of the 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan. And next slide, please. Our third and fourth questions get at agency and local jurisdiction support and whether the public has had an opportunity to provide input. Number 3, agency and other support. Please provide your agency's board approvals, government partner support, and other partner support documents specific to this proposed system addition. Less formal letters of support from local government staff will also suffice. Number 4, public participation. Please describe the level of public input that has occurred specific to this proposed system addition and what was learned. Input may have been gathered through a comprehensive plan update, the development of an agency system plan, a public hearing, or through other avenues. Next slide, please. The last 2 questions ask implementing agencies to consider how their proposals advance Thrive MSP 2040 or regional park system outcomes, as well as to provide some insight into potential costs and timing. Number 5, regional context. Describe how your proposal advances one or more Thrive MSP 2040 or regional park system outcomes, including planning for future population growth, expanding natural resource management, increasing climate resilience, balancing conservation with recreation, promoting access via trails and transit to local, state, and federal parklands, and strengthening equitable usage. And number 6, anticipated funding request and timeline. Please provide a high-level funding estimate for anticipated acquisitions and stewardship. and the anticipated timeline for implementing this proposal. For example, between 0 and 10 years, 11 to 20 years, or over 20 years. Next slide, please. Now that you've had an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the System Additions project, we have a couple of discussion questions for you. First, what are your questions about the System Additions process, including the draft application I just shared? Second, what other insights or advice do you have to help ensure the System Additions process is successful? And because some of you may have questions and others may have insights or advice, I welcome your response to either of these questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. And questions or discussion on that report and those questions? Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Colin. This is also content that came before MPOSC in our last meeting. And one thing that I've been thinking of so much, and I'll just say my mindset, and I think that of MPOSC's members, I had a couple conversations after our meeting are there as well, is how important, given the situation that we're in right now with COVID-19, having access to parks is. What are some of the limitations that are there? And with that and the needs that if we could address maybe using technology or infrastructure improvements, could we be really looking at this with a growth mindset as opposed to a scarcity mindset? And what are those things we need to be thinking about and innovating around? Some of the things that come to mind, given the projects we looked at today, was, for example, bridging systems can provide access from Phelan to other regional park facilities, that those opportunities are so important right now. And what are the other things that could be done as a part of those bridging systems to make parks able to be used in a way that allows for safe and healthy participation? Whether it's things like investing in these bridging systems that allow for more physical disbursement of people between areas, or things that also are needed to enable those bridging systems. Some of them can get you can get pretty far on those bridging systems or between facilities. So bathrooms that automatically disinfect themselves after someone uses them. What are those kinds of things that are really future leaning? Really understanding that plans like this and taking these steps are things that can lead to 50 or 100-year plans. And what are those things we need to be looking out towards down the road? So those are just some of the thoughts. I'm wondering, Colin, has there been discussion about how this conversation might shift given what we're dealing with in parks that are being used in a way that doesn't allow for social distancing right now, or where bathrooms are shut down, or where we might need other types of apps to let people know if a park is at capacity, or things like that?
Colin.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen, those are great questions and considerations. At the System Additions level, we're thinking predominantly at kind of a higher level, 40,000 foot level, whatever you want to call it, with identifying spaces and places that might be appropriate for those future parks, those future regional trail search corridors, making those connections between parks and other trails and communities. There hasn't been a lot of discussion around the use of technology in parks, or, I like the idea of the automatically disinfecting bathrooms. That was a great idea. Most of that more specific discussion will come out in a master planning process after, a unit has been added to the system. But this is great food for thought. So I appreciate those notions, and we'll continue to be thinking about how we can grow not just to 2040, but 50 to 100 years ahead.
Other discussion on the report or on the discussion questions provided by Mr. Kelly?
Mr. Chair, Peter Lindstrom here.
Yeah, go for it, Councilmember Lindstrom.
Thank you. I think Councilmember Atlas Engelbretson answered this, but I just wanted to confirm that the definition of a bridging facility, is that we're talking restrooms or it's a park shelter, is that right? And then I guess my second question to back up even further is this whole process, is this an annual process that we go through or multi-year process? Help me out there, Colin. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. Those are two great questions, and I'll start with the second one. First, typically system additions are considered on a 4-year basis. Each time the Council and Community Development Division, the Regional Parks and Natural Resources Unit, embarks on an update to the Regional Parks Policy Plan, system additions are included in that process. In the most recent update to the Regional Parks Policy Plan, which was adopted in November 2018, system additions were the one holdout or the one remaining item to be completed. And so that's why the timing of this particular system additions process is lagging a little bit after that most recent update. But the next Regional Parks Policy Plan update will occur in 2022, I believe. So it makes the point that this is not the only opportunity to propose additions to the system, that there will be future opportunities in a couple of years' time here, and then typically on a 4-year basis. Councilmember Lindstrom, going back to your first question, I was referring to my handy dandy Regional Parks Policy Plan here, and specifically our Chapter 4, which I've referenced a couple of times during my presentation. One of the reasons we've opted to have a work group focused on bridging facilities is because at this point, they're not very well defined in our Regional Parks Policy Plan. Now, there's been a lot of great discussion about this topic throughout this process and especially recently. But I would refer to our policy plan that talks a little bit about the topic, and it will be fleshed out further in proposed language that will come before MPOSC and CDC and ultimately the council later this year. But if you'll entertain a brief reading from our policy plan, let me just say a couple of sentences here from page 73. Bridging facilities are specialized or single-purpose special recreation features that are intended to attract and introduce new outdoor recreation users to the regional park system. As of 2018, and I said this earlier, there are no bridging facilities in the regional park system. As such, this may be an area for innovation, creativity, and partnership for the council, regional park implementing agencies, and community members. And this part I think is key, editorial note. Bridging facilities may offer an opportunity to prototype a new idea that advances equitable usage of the system by focusing on groups who are underusing regional park system. End quote.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Councilmember Lindstrom?
Yeah, thank you. That's great clarification. I have a totally separate question, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Please.
I'm wondering if are most of these system additions, at least in the past, have they been coming from, say, city parks that are quote unquote upgraded to regional parks? Is that the most common way this happens, or is this like is the most common just straight up private land that's being acquired? Help me out there, Colin.
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Lindstrom, that's another great question. I'll let you know I'm relatively new to the Metropolitan Council, so I can't speak to past processes, perhaps as well as others may be able to. If Greg wanted to go back to one of the maps that was displayed, I believe on the second slide here, it shows an abundance of regional trail search corridors, which, as I understand it, those are those mustard or maize colored lines I believe I referenced earlier. Those are more often than not what is being proposed as system additions these days, or in the past, I should say. You can see that there's a few park search areas there and a single park boundary adjustment. So of those 3 park search areas that are included here, I'm not sure that any of those are necessarily local or county existing parks, existing local or county parks, I should say, but rather they represent spaces that might have a lack of larger park or trail, especially park opportunities in those spaces. But again, I would look to others, perhaps our Regional Parks Unit Manager, Emmett Mullen, or perhaps Councilmember Wolf to flesh out that response a bit, if they so choose.
Thanks, Colin. I see that Councilmember Wolf to raise her hand, so I'll call on her. I see that Director Barajas has activated her camera, so I'm guessing she may have part of an answer too. I'll turn to Councilmember Wolf as first, please.
Thank you. Some of the recent additions have been, well, the landing down in Scott County was already a park, and it was added to the system as a special recreation feature. The is it Silverwood in Minnetrista? I get the names mixed up. There's one in St. Anthony and there's one in Minnetrista that were added recently. The St. Anthony one was a camp that the people didn't want to run it as a camp anymore, so they sold it to Three Rivers. And the one in Minnetrista was also a camp that whoever was running it didn't want to run it anymore, so they sold it to Three Rivers. So a lot of times it'll be something big that's changing. There's another one in Scott County that's a farm on a lake, and that was sold to the county, and they've been adding little bits around that. But it's a wedding venue, and it gives people access to the lake, and they have art classes and different things going on. So usually it's something big that becomes available, or an area that is very ecologically significant. There was one in Dakota County where the county used money from a tax referendum thing. The county had a tax levy for natural resource acquisition, and they basically bought a park and started building it.
Well, thank you. Director Barajas, did you want to add something?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Councilmember Wolf covered all of the more recent ones. I would just add to Colin's definition of those park service areas or search areas, excuse me, that, oh goodness, about 12 years ago or so, the council, maybe longer, had undergone an effort to identify those last best ecological places in the region of sorts. And so that's where we get, especially that northwestern Anoka County one. There isn't an existing park there, but it's a great natural resource area. So somewhere in there was deemed as a great area to set aside or seek acquisition when that becomes available.
Cool. Thank you. Councilmember Lindstrom, anything else?
Great explanations, everybody. Thank you very much.
Great. And Councilmember Wolf, were you still requesting to speak?
I do have other comments beyond the chiming in on that. Okay. Give a little bit of history. This last update that we did in 2018, there had been a lot of disruption in the park unit, and we basically lost the entire park staff. That's why Colin is new. Pretty much everybody there is new. There had been an intention with this update that we're doing now to have kind of a big picture look at the system of what do we want to be when we grow up, and what do we want to prioritize in terms of acquisitions. And that kind of got lost in the shuffle. It wasn't done the last time because it was on a fast track to get done before the new council came in, with the change of leadership potentially at the state level with the governor's election. They wanted to get an update in place so that with the new council, we wouldn't be trying to start all over from scratch. So some things didn't get done in that we decided you just weren't going to be able to get the systems edition conversation completed in the time that was available. With the change in staff and a whole change in the council, the big picture discussion of what do we want to be when we grow up didn't really happen, and it's kind of hard to do now with all of the distancing and everything. We can't get everybody in the room, so I'm not really sure when that conversation is going to happen, but I think it does at some point still need to happen, because there are things with funding where if you're a big agency, you're going to keep getting more money, you have more tax base, you're getting more money from the formulas, and we don't want to become a system that's unbalanced. We want to have opportunities throughout the region that everybody can get to different places, and make sure that we're funding things that are truly regional significance. We don't want to just have every park be the same or be taking the place of what local parks should do. It needs to be something that is truly regionally significant. So I think at some point we need to have more of a regional discussion, because a lot of this discussion that's going on with the park policy plan update is more the nuts and bolts stuff and making sure we get all of the regional agencies' positions, but we haven't reached out to the general public more. Also another group that we should be talking with is the legislature, because they're the ones that decide whether any money is coming through from the bonding bill and from the legacy money and whatnot. If they aren't bought into our system, then we suffer financially, because they're the ones that have the purse strings in large part.
Councilmember Wolf, did you want to see if staff had a response to when the regional conversation of what do we want to be when we grow up?
Sure.
Do you want a response from that, or was that just putting it out there?
If they have one, that's great.
Sure, so I'd give the opportunity. I don't know if it's Director Barajas or if it's Mr. Mullen. I see that.
Councilmember Lilligren, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Great. This is Emmett Mullen. I'm the Regional Parks Manager. And thank you, Councilmember Wolf, for the question about when are we going to take up that big question about what are we going to become when we grow up? This is one of the big roles that the council has with the regional park system. It is to take a step back and look at that regional park system so that, just a minute, please, Margaret. Excuse me. Just so we can take that big look at the system and really envision what it is we want to become. Has that conversation happened yet with the council? No, it hasn't. Lisa Barajas and I are going to be talking about how do we get the not only the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission into this conversation, but also the Community Development Committee. And I think that as Colin said, we're going to be getting in the proposals from our park agencies soon. And we're going to need to look at those proposals as a regional system. And so I think that will allow for some of this conversation. Councilmember Wolf, I take your comments about the big transition in the Parks Unit to heart too. I mean, we have been through tremendous changes, and without the sort of deep history that was once here. Yet that said, we're really hungry for that regional conversation, and we know that you and council members will be really helpful in terms of identifying that policy level conversation about what it is that we want to become. So I don't know if that helped, but it was a commitment to have it, and we're going to have it, as Colin said, this is a system edition conversation. We're going to take this up again and in about 2 to 4 years when we update the Thrive document. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Councilmember Wolf?
Anything further? Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the report or on the discussion questions provided? Councilmember Lee? Nope. Okay, cool. No. So just to the couple of the points on the discussion questions, if I may, and So the system addition process, things that I like about it is that it establishes a time frame, and even if that's a long term, that's 11 to 20 years or something, at least it establishes that. And I think that just goes a long way to establishing credibility around the planning. Yeah, so people have some expectation. And then I also like the sort of high level cost estimates and that take low resources to develop. And I just, when you're looking out that far, I just think it's very helpful for the implementing agencies to not have to do too much work too early. So I just support that approach. That's what I got. Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen, you look like you're going to say something. Nope. All right. I want to give everybody the opportunity. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, thanks, Mr. Kelly, for presenting. Thanks, everyone, for your work on this. This is, yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And we have concluded our agenda. Lisa, Director Barajas, was there anything you wanted to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to thank all of you for participating with us today. I think we're getting into a really good groove in our meetings and doing a better job at that. I think we know for at least the foreseeable future that this will likely be how we participate. I don't have any insights on anything, but thank you for bearing with us on any technology pieces. I did want to share with you that some sad news, but good news at the same time, that our HRA manager, Jennifer Keogh, has left our organization. She had a great opportunity to become the deputy director at the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority, and her first day was today there. So we're sad to see her go, but really excited for her and her new opportunity, and expect to continue partnering with her as we work together with Minneapolis in all of our partnerships, but especially with the Moving to Work partnership.
Thank you, Lisa, for sharing that. That is quite an opportunity for Jennifer, and now a really strong relationship between the two housing authorities. Well, anything else? Can I just adjourn this, or do we need to do a roll call?
Mr. Chair, you can adjourn without a roll call.
All right, thank you. Seeing no further business before this committee, we are adjourned. Good health, everyone. Thanks for your cooperation.